Only 4 people knew it actually happened. The rest of the world never saw it. No footage, no photos, just whispers that spread like wildfire through martial arts circles, boxing gyms, and Hollywood studios. For decades, it remained a secret, a moment that shattered everything people believed about speed, power, and the gap between two legends. But before we tell you what happened, we have to go back. Back to when Muhammad Ali was untouchable, undefeated. The fastest hands in boxing, a man who moved like lightning and talked like thunder. He was the greatest, and he meant every word. And Bruce Lee? Bruce Lee was a different kind of warrior entirely. By 1969, Bruce had already revolutionized martial arts. He wasn't just a martial artist, he was a physicist of combat. Every movement calculated, every strike designed to deliver maximum impact in minimum time. He was fast, impossibly fast. The kind of fast that made people question if what they saw was real. The two never fought officially, but they knew of each other. And that's when the challenge came. It happened in Los Angeles. The city was electric with tension. Ali was at the peak of his powers, charismatic, dominant, untouchable in the ring. Bruce was filming, training, building something revolutionary. Their worlds were separate. Boxing versus martial arts, Western showmanship versus Eastern philosophy. Then someone said it. Not Ali, not Bruce, but someone close to both of them. Ali's the fastest athlete alive. That statement echoed. Because in boxing circles, it was accepted fact. Ali's hand speed was measured and tested. His reflexes were superhuman. Journalists wrote about it. Trainers studied it. The boxing world treated it as scientific truth. But martial artists knew something different. In the dojo, speed was measured differently. It wasn't just hand speed. It was total body coordination. The ability to move every part of your body in perfect synchronization. The capacity to generate power from minimal distance. The reflexes that came not from coaching, but from thousands of hours of conditioning your nervous system to react faster than thought. Bruce Lee had something Ali didn't. And Ali had something Bruce didn't. But what if they tested it? The idea was insane. It was never supposed to happen. 2 different worlds, 2 different combat systems, 2 men at the absolute peak of their respective disciplines.
Word got to Ali. Ali's response was pure Ali. Confident, cocky, amused. "Let's see it," he said. And that's when Bruce said yes. The date was set. A private location. No media, no crowds. Just witnesses, trainers, coaches, close friends. People who could be trusted to keep a secret that would shake the foundation of how people understood combat sports. The night before, Bruce didn't sleep much. Not because he was nervous. Bruce didn't get nervous. But he was focused, laser focused. He understood what was about to happen. This wasn't a fight. This was a test of a single attribute. Pure reflexive speed. Hand speed. Reaction time. The ability to move faster than the human eye could follow. He ran through calculations in his mind. Ali's speed came from years of boxing training. Arm movements refined and perfected from childhood. Explosive, powerful, precise. The man had fought the best heavyweights on the planet. His speed had been tested against fighters built like mountains. But Bruce's speed.
No bravado, no trash talk, just focus. His team knew what he was thinking. They could read it in his eyes. He had something to prove, but not to the world, to himself. To test the theories he'd been developing about human speed and reaction time. The room was set up simply. 2 men facing each other, several feet apart. The rules were clear. This wasn't a fight. It was a speed test. Ali would throw a punch, any speed, any direction. Bruce's job was simple. React and defend. Sounds easy. It's not. Because the gap between speed and reaction is microseconds. The difference between seeing a punch and defending against it is measured in fractions of a second. And at elite levels, that gap is almost non-existent. The witnesses stood around the room. Trainers, close friends, martial arts masters. Everyone understood the gravity of the moment. This was about to answer a question that had been whispered about for years. Muhammad Ali stepped into position. He was loose, rolling his shoulders, moving his head side to side, bouncing slightly. This was his environment, combat. He'd spent his entire life perfecting this moment. His hands had been tested against heavyweight champions. His speed had earned him championship belts. He looked at Bruce. Bruce stood perfectly still. No movement, no wasted energy.
Ali threw a jab. It was fast, incredibly fast. The kind of jab that had landed on countless opponents before they could react. A jab that had set up combinations that had ended fights. The jab of a man who had trained since childhood to make his hands lethal. Bruce moved. His head tilted, a fraction of an inch. It was so subtle, so precise, that some people in the room almost didn't see it. But Ali's jab missed by nothing. It passed through the space where Bruce's face had been a microsecond before. Ali's eyes widened. Just slightly, but the witnesses saw it. He threw another jab. Faster this time, committed, from the same distance. The kind of combination starter that had confused dozens of professional boxers. Bruce moved.
And in a pure speed test, in a pure test of reflexes and reaction time, Bruce Lee was faster. When it ended, when they both stepped back, the room was silent. Ali was breathing harder, not because he was tired, but because he had been fully engaged. He looked at Bruce with a new respect, a recognition that what he was looking at wasn't a martial artist playing with boxing. It was a master of an entirely different discipline. Bruce simply nodded. No words, no celebration, just acknowledgement. The witnesses looked at each other. They all knew simultaneously this moment could never be public. The boxing world would never accept it. The narrative was too powerful. Ali was the fastest. It was part of his legend. To release footage or testimony that showed someone faster would undermine everything he represented. And for Bruce, there was no need to prove anything. He already knew. His system already worked. He didn't need the world's validation. So they made a pact. No one talks about this. Not to the media, not to journalists, until both men are gone. As the years passed, the secret spread like an urban legend. A few people had been in that room. They told people they trusted, who told people they trusted. The story grew and transformed, but its core remained the same. Bruce Lee was tested against Muhammad Ali in a speed test, and Bruce Lee was faster. It became whispered about in martial arts circles, mentioned in training facilities, discussed in late-night conversations between masters and their students. But it never went mainstream, because the people who knew understood something profound. Some truths are more powerful when they remain mysteries. But the secret had a way of changing things. Even unspoken, even hidden, it shifted something fundamental in how both men saw themselves and their crafts. Ali never publicly acknowledged it. That wasn't his style. His narrative remained unchanged, the greatest, undefeated, untouchable. And technically that was still true. In boxing, in his sport, he had no equal. The speed test didn't diminish that. But privately, Ali understood something new. He had encountered someone operating at a different level. Not better, necessarily. Different. And that knowledge, that single moment of clarity, influenced how he thought about martial arts for the rest of his life. He became more curious about Bruce's training methods, more respectful of martial arts as a discipline, more willing to acknowledge that speed and excellence could manifest in different ways. Friends close to Ali said he would occasionally mention it, not to prove anything, but to acknowledge reality. That guy was fast. Different kind of fast than me, but fast. For Bruce, the moment confirmed what he already knew. His system worked, not just on students or in controlled environments, but against the fastest athlete on the planet, a man built differently, trained differently, competing in a different sport, and Bruce's principles of speed, efficiency, and reflexive response still proved superior in a pure reaction test. But Bruce didn't become arrogant about it. If anything, he became more humble, because understanding that you can beat Muhammad Ali in a speed test doesn't make you Muhammad Ali. Ali was a champion of the world, a cultural icon, a man who had proven himself against the greatest heavyweights on the planet in actual fights that mattered. Bruce understood the difference between a speed test and a real fight, between testing a single attribute and proving superiority in actual combat. This moment deepened his philosophy. It taught him that martial arts wasn't about ego. It wasn't about proving you were faster or stronger than everyone else. It was about understanding your own potential and using that understanding to become the best version of yourself. That's what Bruce took from that night, and it's what he built into everything that followed. In the years after, the secret spread through underground channels. Martial arts masters spoke about it in hushed tones. Do you know what happened between Bruce and Ali? Trainers would mention it to serious students. Bruce was faster. The test proved it. But it never went public because the people who knew understood the power of restraint. In our modern world, every moment is captured, every achievement is broadcast, every victory is live-streamed to millions. We've become addicted to proof, to documentation, to evidence that we can share and spread.
But this secret was more powerful because it remained hidden. It became mythology, legend, the kind of story that grows more profound with time because it's not weighed down by footage or documentation. It exists in the realm of what could be true, what experienced people believe to be true, what makes sense given everything we know about both men's abilities. And that's precisely why it mattered. The speed test between Bruce Lee and Muhammad Ali wasn't really about determining who was faster. It was about two masters at the absolute peak of their disciplines coming together to test a hypothesis. It was about ego being set aside in the name of pure exploration. It was about two men secure enough in their own greatness to be willing to learn from each other. In that moment, something shifted in martial arts culture. Bruce Lee had always taught that martial arts wasn't about style. It wasn't about tradition for tradition's sake. It was about efficiency, about understanding principles that transcended any particular system, about taking what was useful and discarding what was not. The speed test exemplified this philosophy. Here was a martial artist proving that the principles he had developed, principles drawn from multiple disciplines, refined through intense study and practice, could surpass even the greatest athlete from a completely different combat system. It wasn't arrogance. It was validation. It validated.
For centuries, martial arts had been locked into tradition. Different styles operated in isolation. Kung Fu practitioners didn't study boxing. Boxers didn't study martial arts. Wrestlers and strikers occupied separate worlds. Each system believed it was the best, and they rarely crossed paths to test that belief. Bruce shattered that paradigm. He studied everything: boxing, wrestling, fencing, dance, physics, philosophy. He took from all of it and created something new. And when he stood across from Muhammad Ali, the greatest athlete from a completely different combat discipline, he proved that his synthesized approach worked. It worked against the best. That moment validated an entire revolution in martial arts thinking. It suggested that the future of combat sports wasn't about being loyal to one tradition. It was about being intelligent enough to recognize excellence wherever it existed, and bold enough to integrate it into your own system. In the decades after Bruce's death, This philosophy would transform martial arts globally. Mixed martial arts emerged. Fighters studied multiple disciplines. Wrestling combined with boxing. Muay Thai mixed with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Karate integrated with submission techniques. The sport exploded because fighters realized what Bruce had known all along. The best fighter isn't the one most devoted to one style, but the one who can synthesize multiple systems and use principles to transcend any single discipline. And it all traces back to that night, to that quiet room in Los Angeles, to two masters willing to test their understanding against each other's excellence. You might wonder why this moment was never made public during their lifetimes. The answer is more complex than you'd expect. First, there was practical reality. In the late 1960s, releasing footage of Bruce Lee defending against Muhammad Ali, even in a speed test, would have created chaos. The boxing world would have rejected it.
Bruce Lee's legend was built on his revolutionary approach to martial arts and his brief but transformative career. His impact came from his ideas, his students, his films, his philosophy. It didn't depend on proving he was faster than Muhammad Ali. In fact, making it public might have diminished both of them. It would have turned a moment of pure exploration, two masters testing their understanding, into a competition. It would have forced people to pick sides, to declare one superior to the other, to reduce something nuanced into something simple and divisive. By keeping it secret, both men preserved something more valuable. They preserved the purity of the moment. Today, decades later, we're left with whispers, testimonies from people who claim to have been there, stories that have been passed down through martial arts communities, a legend that has grown in the retelling, but whose core remains consistent. Bruce Lee and Muhammad Ali tested each other's speed, and Bruce was faster. We don't have footage, we don't have scientific measurements, we don't have documentation. All we have is the story. And maybe that's more powerful than video would ever be, because it forces us to think, to consider what we know about these two men, and whether such a moment makes sense given everything we understand about their abilities, their training, their philosophies. And for those who study martial arts deeply, who understand the principles Bruce taught, who comprehend how reaction time differs from movement speed, the story makes perfect sense. It's not just believable, it's probable. It's the kind of thing that absolutely could have happened, given what we know. The real lesson from this moment isn't about speed records or who was faster. It's about Bruce Lee's core philosophy. Absorb what is useful, discard what is useless, and add what is uniquely your own. Bruce lived this principle. He wasn't content to be a martial artist in one tradition. He studied everything. He tested everything. He integrated what worked and rejected what didn't. And through this process, he created something revolutionary. Muhammad Ali represented a different kind of mastery. He had taken boxing and pushed it to its absolute limits. He had made a 210-pound heavyweight move like a welterweight. He had redefined what was possible in his sport through sheer dedication and innovation. When these two came together, two masters from completely different worlds, something profound happened. They recognized each other, not as competitors fighting for supremacy, but as two people who had dedicated their lives to excellence and mastery. Two people who had pushed the boundaries of what was possible in their disciplines. Two people who understood that true power comes not from ego, but from understanding yourself completely. That's the real legacy of that moment. Here's what the witnesses knew. That night wasn't about proving anything to the world. It was about two masters getting honest feedback from the only source that mattered, another master. It was Muhammad Ali getting to see how his speed, which had never been questioned, compared to a completely different expression of speed. It was Bruce Lee getting to test his principles against the greatest athlete from a different combat system. Both men left that room exactly where they started, as the greatest in their respective fields. But both men left with something more valuable than a victory. They left with respect, with understanding, with the knowledge that true mastery manifests in different ways, and that true mastery requires humility, the willingness to learn, to test, to remain open to what others have discovered. This is what Bruce taught his students. This is what he lived every day. And this secret moment, This brief encounter with Muhammad Ali exemplified his entire life philosophy. Only a handful of people ever knew for certain what happened that night. The rest of us are left with a beautiful mystery, a legend, a story that has grown and evolved over decades, whose core message remains unchanged. Speed is about more than just moving fast. It's about perception, about reflexes, about training your nervous system to respond faster than thought, about understanding that excellence in martial arts doesn't come from following tradition blindly, but from studying all traditions, extracting their essence, and creating something uniquely powerful. This is why we're telling you this story today. Because it matters. Because it represents a moment when two of history's greatest athletes came together in service of pure exploration. Because it reminds us that true mastery isn't about ego or proving yourself to the world. It's about understanding your own potential and pushing it to its absolute limits.
Muhammad Ali proved you could make your body move faster than anyone thought possible. Bruce Lee proved you could condition your nervous system to perceive and respond faster than any single sports training could achieve. And when they met, even in secrecy, even in a quiet room with just a few witnesses, something extraordinary happened. A legend was born. A legend that has only grown more powerful with time because it remains cloaked in mystery, because it invites us to believe, to wonder, to ask ourselves, what if two of history's greatest masters came together to test their understanding? What if they discovered something that transcended sports and tradition? What if that moment changed everything about how martial arts evolved? The secret of Bruce Lee versus Muhammad Ali may never be completely proven, but it doesn't need to be. The proof exists in the evolution of martial arts itself,